There are new developments in the disappearance of University of Pittsburgh student Sudiksha Kanaki, who went missing on spring break in the Dominican Republic. Authorities have now confiscated the passport of 22-year-old Joshua Reby, a senior on vacation from St. Cloud State University in Minnesota. Reby was questioned for hours by the Attorney General on Sunday. Now, he is believed to be the last person to see Sudiksha alive, but Reby is not a suspect in her disappearance at this time. He is, however, being surveilled at his hotel and was further questioned again today. And now, surveillance is giving us a clearer visual of the events of that night. First at the resort's bar, where you can see Kanaki on the left in white with friends just hours before she was reported missing. The second spot shadow is Reby, who at one point is seen bent over and stumbling. Then there is this surveillance video of the two later walking to the beach together. Kanaki's belongings were later found on a lounge chair at the same beach. Joining me now is CNN Chief Law Enforcement Intelligence Analyst John Miller. John, this is such a difficult moment for this family. And can you parse for us why Reby's passport is being held if he is not a suspect?
Well, Laura, this was something that they did early on, which is, when they started questioning people and they knew he was the last one to be with her. For identification purposes, they looked at his passport and they said, we're going to keep this. That has given them the advantage to say, well, he is not in custody, he's not a suspect, he's not a person of interest, but they've had the insurance that he's also not able to leave as long as they hold his passport. And they've had a couple of detectives on him all the time, which means if he goes somewhere, they go with him. If he's asleep at night, they're outside because he is right at this point, a critical witness in the case. And because they have his passport and they're keeping an eye on him, they're not going to lose track of him.
And of course, everyone has to remember, this is not the United States. The same constitutional directives and plans are not available. And so how long they can keep him and withhold his passport from him is a question for everyone. Reby also has been questioned by the Dominican National Police. It's happened more than once. Also by the Dominican Attorney General himself, and also by investigators from Loudoun County, where Sudiksha is from. NBC News actually spotted him with investigators at the beach. Why would they want to question him there, do you think?
So that's not the first time they have brought him down there. I've been in touch with investigators on this case over the last week and a half, and this is what we would call a walkthrough in a case like this, where you bring him back to the beach, and you want to get this very clear. So you take him down there and you say, all right, so listen, where do you think you guys went into the water? Can you walk us there? Can you point that out? How are you fixing that location in your mind based on what's here? Where was the chair that you say you went to sleep in? Where was the chair where you were initially took off your clothes, emptied your pockets, and left your belongings there? When you saw her walking at an angle in the surf up to her knees in the waves again, after you told us that you were able to pull her out where she seemed to be almost drowning, which direction was she going? What spot was that? They're trying to figure out, are we looking in the right places? Because we still have not recovered a body.
And, of course, consistency. If they do have any suspicions, I'm sure they'll want to investigate further. We don't know. He is not named a suspect in this case. But if he is allowed to leave the Dominican Republic, could they force him back at some point? And, of course, he and Reby are both Americans. If he goes back to the United States, does law enforcement here pick up the investigation?
No, the Dominican National Police are going to be the lead in this investigation. The FBI has opened a case under the criteria that they are providing assistance to a foreign law enforcement organization to the extent that the Dominican government asked for that assistance. But you said consistency, which is an important point. The reason Mike Chapman, the Loudoun County Sheriff, sent two of his investigators from Virginia down to the Dominican Republic, where they have no jurisdiction, was for exactly that point, which is, they talked about the number of times he's been interviewed with his lawyer, two lawyers. Loudoun County interviewed him with his lawyer in the Dominican Republic and his father, but there was no translator involved. They asked him questions in English, he answered in English. So they said he was very forthcoming, that they didn't find any significant inconsistencies, and that they found him to be a credible witness. Now, the other thing is there were questions he wouldn't answer in the first interview. Simple questions like, how did all this make you feel? What was the statement you made about the girl when you got back to your hotel room? And, you know, that was on the advice of his lawyer. So they still aren't sure where they are in this case.
John Miller, this must be excruciating for the family of Sudiksha. They just
No
want
doubt.
to know what happened with their daughter and where she might be. John Miller, thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura.